I'd like to talk to you about the biblical view of work. Married or single, how does your occupation, your job, relate to your Christian faith? Does it matter to God how you view your work or how you do your work? Think about it. Whether you work in an office, a factory, or at home, a large portion of your time is spent at work. It's important to have a biblical view of work. This is part of walking with the Lord or walking in the Spirit. So I'd like to talk to you about the biblical view of work. And I want to begin by reminding you that God works. In Genesis chapter 1, it says, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and earth." God works. He's a thoughtful and creative worker. In verse 2, it says, "And the earth was formless and void, and darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was moving over the surface of the waters." He's active. He's active and thoroughly engaged in his creation. Then it says God created man, male and female. So at the very beginning, we see God working. Man was created to work. In Genesis chapter 1, verse 8, it says, "God said to them, 'Fill the earth and subdue it.'" And then in chapter 2, verse 15, it says, "Then the Lord God took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden to cultivate it and keep it." God designed man to subdue, rule, cultivate, and keep the earth. God works. Man, made in God's image, is to reflect him in all we do, including our work. Now notice, man does not choose to work. God created man, placed him in the garden to cultivate it and keep it. God appointed man to work. Work is part of the created order for husbands and wives. Therefore, work has a theological significance. To view work outside of Christian theology as just another way to pay your bills devalues work and its relationship to God, who, by the way, works. A biblical view of work is all about honoring and obeying God. It's part of the command to love God and neighbor. It's loving God in that He appointed us to work and contribute to subduing and ruling and cultivating the earth. It's loving your neighbor because your neighbor, or rather because your work meets a need your neighbor may have. Your work, whatever it is, may be seen as serving others. Are you a plumber? Are you a mechanic or a doctor? Do you provide a product such as shingles for a roof, medicine, or clothing? Are you a school teacher, a college professor? Are you a stay-at-home parent, a stay-at-home wife, mother raising children and taking care of the home? Work includes a variety of things. There's the work of relationships between husbands and wives. There's creative work, such as building a skyscraper, painting a Mona Lisa, composing a song. All of these and more are part of what it means to subdue the earth over in Genesis 1:28. It's never right to not work. Play is work for a young child. They stack their blocks and they learn how their toys operate. And when they get a little older, they have chores and they have schoolwork. You remember over in Ecclesiastes 5:12 it says, "The sleep of the working man is pleasant." You see, working involves both physical and mental effort. All day at work, your muscles are tensed and your mind is occupied. At the end of the day, you go home. You relax. Yes, you're tired. But there's a sense of satisfaction, a pleasant and restful feeling. When a person doesn't work, they become dissatisfied. And while you may not have been physically working, I guarantee your mind's been working. There's a lot of mental activity going on when you're not physically working. You're anxious and worrying about finances and family problems and this and that. This repetitive thinking, the Bible teaches in Psalm 37, can lead to depression and anxiety. In other words, what I'm trying to point out is your mind has been working all day. However, you haven't, through physical work, released any of the tension and energy that being active and working accomplishes. So while you've sat around all day, you really weren't relaxing. Let me give you an example. Have you ever experienced this? You've worked all week, and now it's the weekend. You can finally come home and relax. You kick back, you lay around all day, and then later that evening, you say to your husband or you say to your wife, "I don't know why I'm so tired. I haven't done anything all day." But you see, you did something. But you didn't do any physical work. An active day where you accomplish work may be more relaxing than if you sat on the sofa watching television. Have you ever said or thought something like this? "I mowed the lawn, I worked in the garden, I washed the car, I walked the dog. What a relaxing day." Work or lack of it can affect a person both physically and mentally. We are all expected to act responsibly. The Apostle Paul said in Galatians 6:5, "Each one will bear his own load and not be a burden to others," in 2 Thessalonians 3. People that are unwilling to work often become depressed and envious and jealous and so on. Proverbs 13:4 says, the soul of a sluggard, yeah, the soul of the sluggard craves and gets nothing. Over in 2 Thessalonians chapter 3, Paul denounces people who are lazy, people who are undisciplined and will not work. He says, if anyone is not willing to work, then he's not to eat either. Well, that's pretty blunt. Seems almost cold. He's not talking about those who have a legitimate reason for not working. He's talking about those that are able but unwilling to work. It's a violation of God's creative design for mankind. The book of Proverbs contrasts a lazy man with a diligent man. It says a diligent man will succeed, but you have to force a lazy man to work. It says in chapter 13, verse 14, where's it at? Uh, Oh, I'm sorry. It's in chapter 13, verse 4. The soul of the sluggard craves, sluggard, lazy. The soul of the sluggard or lazy man craves and gets nothing. You see, he wants something, but because he's lazy, he doesn't prosper. He gets nothing. In Proverbs 15:9, or Proverbs 15:19, I'm sorry, it states, the way of the sluggard, the lazy man, is as a hedge of thorns. Now, you know how hard it is to get through a hedge of thorns, don't you? Try to get through a hedge of thorns, you get all cut up, and, well, it's difficult. A lazy man's life is difficult. In other words, it's a hard life, always depending upon others to help him out, relying on others to pay your bills or assist you in some way or another. But it says here, the path of the upright is a highway. A person who works, their life is like a highway. It's an open road of opportunity, the opposite of a hedge of thorns. Well, let me close by asking this. What about retirement? Many people view retirement as an end of work. That's wrong. A Christian needs to understand that retirement is not an end to work. It's exchanging one type of work for another. Working at your church, leading a weekly Bible study group, volunteering in your community, a community center for youth or for seniors, helping your neighbor. A hobby such as gardening or learning to play an instrument. There are endless examples. But the main thing to remember is idleness is a sin. God expects us to remain active even in our senior years. Let me close by saying that there is a connection between work and worship. Whatever your work may be, it is an act of worship. Because, see, Paul wrote in Colossians 3:23-24, whatever you do, do your work heartily as for the Lord. It is the Lord Christ whom you serve. We need to take a proper view of work. We need to take our work more seriously.